Serenity's Song by Selene Bishop. Chapter 1. Serenity Peak shimmered under the golden glow of the summer sun, nestled like a jewel amidst the rugged mountains. The town bustled with preparations for its annual music festival. Sarah Kensington navigated the quaint streets with a quiet determination. Sarah, a reserved librarian, found solace in the familiar routine of shelving books and organizing literary events at the town's cozy library. She cherished the tranquility of her small-town life, where the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the river provided a comforting backdrop to her solitary existence. Yet, as the music festival approached, Sarah felt a restlessness stirring within her, a yearning for something beyond the confines of her beloved library and the comfort of routine. She had always been content with her quiet life, finding solace in the pages of books that transported her to distant lands and whispered of untold adventures. As evening descended, casting a golden hue over the mountains that cradled Serenity Peak, Sarah found herself drawn to the town square, where preparations for the festival were in full swing. Tents had sprung up like mushrooms after a summer rain, each adorned with twinkling lights and vibrant decorations that added a festive flair to the usually serene landscape. Families wandered hand in hand, their laughter blending with the strains of music that floated on the evening breeze. Sarah watched from the outskirts of the crowd, a curious observer amidst the throng of excited townsfolk and eager tourists who had come to witness the spectacle of the opening concert. The stage, now glowing with bright stage lights, stood like a beacon at the center of the square. Sarah's gaze was drawn to the figure that stepped onto the platform, a man whose presence commanded attention despite his casual demeanor. Liam Hunter. Liam epitomized the essence of a wandering musician, with his tousled chestnut hair and easy smile that hinted at a life lived on the road. He strummed his guitar with practiced fingers, each chord resonating with a soulful melody that spoke of love and longing. As Liam's voice filled the evening air, Sarah felt a stirring deep within her, a yearning for something beyond the quiet confines of her beloved library. His lyrics wove tales of heartache and hope, capturing the essence of life in the mountains, where every sunrise painted a new canvas of possibility. The crowd swayed to the rhythm of Liam's music, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of candlelit lanterns that cast a soft, ethereal light over the gathering. Children danced with abandon, their laughter echoing off the stone walls of nearby buildings as couples twirled beneath the starlit sky. Sarah stood mesmerized, her heart beating in time with the pulsating energy of the festival. For a fleeting moment, as Liam's eyes scanned the crowd, their gazes locked. A brief exchange that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, as if a chord had been struck deep within her soul. In that instant, amidst the swirling melodies and the intoxicating magic of the summer night, Sarah knew that her quiet existence in Serenity Peak was about to change. Liam Hunter, with his enigmatic presence and haunting melodies, had woven himself into the fabric of her life. The strains of music lingered in the cool night air as the concert drew to a close, leaving Sarah standing amidst the dispersing crowd, her thoughts swirling with a mix of wonder and uncertainty. She watched as families retreated into the labyrinthine streets of Serenity Peak, their voices carrying on the breeze like echoes of a distant melody. With a sigh, Sarah turned away from the now empty stage and began to leave, her mind buzzing with questions and emotions that danced like fireflies in the darkness. The encounter with Liam Hunter had awakened a longing within her, a desire to explore the unknown, to embrace the spontaneity of life beyond the pages of books. As she walked away from the venue, the soft glow of lanterns guiding her path, Sarah found herself drawn to memories of her childhood. She recalled summers spent exploring the mountains with her father, the scent of pine needles and wildflowers mingling with the laughter that had once filled her days with boundless joy. Lost in reverie, Sarah almost missed the sound of footsteps approaching from behind a steady rhythm that matched the cadence of her thoughts. She turned, her heart skipping a beat as she found herself face to face with Liam Hunter, his guitar slung over his shoulder like a familiar companion. "Hi." Liam's voice was warm and filled with genuine curiosity, his eyes sparkling with an intensity that mirrored the starlit sky above them. A faint blush warmed her cheeks as she struggled to find her voice amidst the unexpected encounter. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she managed, her gaze meeting Liam's with a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. Liam smiled, a crooked grin that softened the edges of his rugged features. "I couldn't help but notice you in the crowd tonight," he admitted, his words tinged with a hint of sheepishness. For some reason, he felt unexplainably drawn to this girl. He saw lots of girls at the concert, but he never felt the urge to give any of them a second glance. Yet something about her, he just couldn't take his eyes off of her. Sarah's cheeks flushed deeper at Liam's observation, her fingers twisting nervously at the hem of her sweater. I'm not used to being noticed," she confessed softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He glanced at her with genuine curiosity. "So, Sarah, what is it that drew you to the festival tonight? Are you a fan of live music?" Sarah hesitated for a moment, adjusting the strap of her bag over her shoulder. "Actually, I'm not much of a crowd person," she admitted with a shy smile. "But there's something about your music. I don't know. It spoke to me in a way I can't quite explain." Liam nodded thoughtfully, his gaze warm and appreciative. "I'm glad to hear that. Music has a way of reaching places words alone cannot." She nodded in agreement. "So," Liam said, "do you live in this adorable town?" "Yes, I love it here," Sarah confessed, her voice soft but earnest. "I work at the library." Liam listened attentively, nodding in understanding. "It sounds like you have a deep connection to this town," he observed gently, his eyes reflecting a genuine interest in Sarah's world. Sarah nodded, a flicker of nostalgia in her eyes. "Serenity Peak has always been my home," she admitted, "but tonight felt different. Your music brought a sense of adventure and possibility that I haven't felt in a long time." Liam smiled, touched by Sarah's sincerity. "I'm glad I could bring a bit of magic to your evening," he replied warmly. They started to stroll through the quiet streets of Serenity Peak, their conversation flowing effortlessly as they exchanged stories and shared moments of laughter. Sarah found herself drawn to Liam's adventurous spirit. As they reached the steps of Sarah's quaint cottage, bathed in the soft glow of a nearby street lamp, Liam turned to her with a gentle smile. "Thank you for sharing this moment with me, Sarah," he said sincerely, his gaze holding hers. Sarah nodded, her heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Thank you, Liam," she replied softly, her voice filled with gratitude. With a final nod, Liam bid Sarah goodnight and disappeared into the night, leaving her standing on the doorstep of her cottage with a newfound sense of wonder. She watched his retreating figure until it disappeared around a corner, the echoes of his music lingering in the cool night air. She wondered for a moment if he had been real at all, or was tonight just a fantasy like one of her favorite books. Chapter 2. The day that followed unfolded like a symphony of unexpected moments and quiet revelations for Sarah Kensington. Liam Hunter's presence lingered in her thoughts, like a haunting melody, his music resonating deep within her as she navigated the familiar routines of her quiet life. In the warm embrace of early morning sunlight filtering through the library's tall windows, Sarah found herself immersed in her work with a renewed sense of purpose. The shelves seemed to whisper tales of distant lands and untold adventures, their pages a refuge from the outside world where Liam's music still echoed in her mind. Sarah heard the soft chime of the library door opening, signaling the arrival of a visitor. She looked up from her desk, a gentle smile lighting her face as Liam stepped into the library, his presence filling the room with an air of quiet anticipation. "Liam," Sarah greeted warmly, her voice a soft echo in the hushed sanctuary of books. "To what do we owe the pleasure of your visit?" Liam returned her smile, his eyes bright with genuine warmth. "I thought I'd take a break from exploring the town and see what hidden treasures lie within these walls," he replied, his gaze sweeping over the rows of books that lined the library's shelves. Sarah gestured towards the shelves with a playful glint in her eyes. "Well, you've certainly come to the right place for exploration," she remarked with a hint of amusement. "Is there a particular genre or author you're interested in?" Liam chuckled softly, his fingers idly tracing the spines of books as if searching for a hidden gem. "I'm drawn to stories that transport me to new worlds," he admitted, his voice tinged with a hint of nostalgia. "Books that offer glimpses into lives and landscapes I may never see firsthand." Sarah nodded in understanding, her own love for literature reflected in the quiet passion with which she spoke of her favorite authors and cherished novels. She guided Liam through the library, pointing out classics and contemporary works alike, each selection accompanied by a brief commentary that revealed her deep appreciation for storytelling. By the time they reached a cozy reading nook nestled in a corner of the library, Sarah and Liam had settled into a comfortable rhythm of conversation, their laughter mingling with the faint rustle of pages being turned by other patrons. "Liam, have you ever read The Mountain's Whisper?" Sarah asked, pausing beside a shelf lined with books on local history and legends. Liam's gaze brightened with recognition. "Yes, it's one of my favorites," he replied warmly. "The way the author captures the spirit of these mountains, it's as if the landscape itself becomes a character in the story." Sarah smiled, delighted to find a kindred spirit in Liam's appreciation for the natural beauty that surrounded Serenity Peak. "I've always felt a deep connection to these mountains," she confessed softly, her gaze drifting towards the library's tall windows, where the peak stood sentinel against the azure sky. Liam nodded thoughtfully, his eyes wandering over the shelves as if seeing them in a new light. "There's a certain magic to places like this," he mused, his voice filled with reverence. Sarah smiled. They sat side by side at a small table, their conversation turning to more personal reflections and shared dreams. Liam spoke of his love for the outdoors and the serenity he found in nature, while Sarah revealed her passion for writing, a quiet aspiration she had kept hidden from all but a select few. "You should share your stories with the world," Liam encouraged gently, his eyes full of admiration. Sarah's cheeks flushed with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, touched by Liam's belief in her abilities as a storyteller. "I've always been content with writing for myself," she admitted softly, her gaze meeting Liam's with a newfound sense of vulnerability. "But perhaps there's more to my love for words than I've allowed myself to believe." As the morning waned into afternoon, Sarah and Liam reluctantly bid farewell to the library's tranquil haven, their hearts both feeling lighter. Chapter 3. The next afternoon, Liam met Sarah at the library, and they ventured into the heart of Serenity Peak's bustling town square, where the remnants of the summer music festival still lingered in the air like a sweet melody. Tents adorned with colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, offering handmade crafts and local delicacies that beckoned to curious tourists and inquisitive locals alike. "I've never seen a town so alive," Liam remarked with a smile, his eyes scanning the vibrant tapestry of sights and sounds that surrounded them. Sarah nodded in agreement, her own gaze drawn to a nearby booth displaying intricately woven tapestries that shimmered in the sunlight. "The festival brings out the best in Serenity Peak," she mused softly, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns with a touch of wonder. As they strolled through the bustling square, Liam paused beside a makeshift stage where a group of local musicians were setting up for an impromptu jam session. The melody of acoustic guitars and lilting harmonies filled the air, drawing a small crowd of onlookers who swayed to the rhythm of the music. "Music is the heartbeat of this town," Liam remarked, his voice tinged with admiration as he watched the musicians effortlessly blend their talents into a seamless symphony of sound. Sarah smiled, captivated by the infectious energy that permeated the square. "There's something magical about the way music brings people together," she observed, her gaze lingering on Liam as if savoring the moment. As the afternoon waned on, Sarah and Liam found themselves perched on a weathered bench overlooking Serenity Peak's tranquil lake, where the mountains mirrored their rugged beauty in the shimmering waters below. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink that reflected off the lake's surface like a canvas come to life. "It's moments like these that remind me why I love this town," Sarah confessed softly, her eyes tracing the fading light as if committing the scene to memory. Liam nodded in quiet agreement, his gaze lingering on Sarah with a warmth that mirrored the twilight sky. "Serenity Peak has a way of capturing your heart," he admitted, his voice a whisper against the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Their silence was comfortable, filled with unspoken words. Sarah felt a sense of peace settle over her, a reassurance that, despite the uncertainties of life, there was solace to be found in the quiet moments shared with someone who understood the essence of her soul. As they sat together, Sarah found herself grateful for the unexpected twist of fate that had brought Liam into her life. In his presence, she discovered a newfound courage to embrace change and pursue the dreams that had long been tucked away in the corners of her heart. "I'm glad I met you, Liam," Sarah murmured, her voice barely above a whisper as she turned to him with a smile that spoke volumes. Liam returned her smile, his eyes shining with a tenderness that mirrored her own. "As am I, Sarah," he replied softly. Suddenly, two people ran over excitedly, asking for a photo with Liam. He agreed happily, smiling from ear to ear. Sarah scooted away from him to make sure she wasn't in the photo. After they left, he turned to her. "Let's go for a walk," he said. Sarah nodded in agreement. They took a leisurely stroll towards Serenity Mountain, the town's streets slowly turning into winding dirt trails that meandered through ancient forests. The air grew thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers, the sunlight filtering through the canopy overhead in dappled patterns that danced across their path. "It's breathtaking," Liam remarked, his gaze sweeping over the view that stretched before them. His eyes lingered on Sarah, taking in the way her hair caught the sunlight, and the curve of her lips as she smiled back at him. Sarah felt a tingling warmth spread through her as Liam's gaze held hers. "There's a sense of peace here," she admitted softly, her eyes tracing the distant peaks that stood sentinel against the azure sky. A serenity that's hard to find elsewhere. As they hiked deeper into the heart of the forest, their conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving between shared anecdotes and quiet moments of reflection. Liam's proximity sent a thrill through Sarah, the brush of his arm against hers, igniting a subtle but undeniable spark between them. Liam noticed the way Sarah's breath quickened slightly when their hands brushed as they navigated a narrow trail. The air was charged with unspoken tension, a palpable awareness of their growing attraction. "It sounds like each town has its own story to tell," Sarah remarked, her voice tinged with a mixture of admiration and a hint of something more, as she leaned closer to him, her hand lightly touching his arm. Liam swallowed, his heart racing in response to Sarah's nearness. "And yet, there's something special about Serenity Peak," he confessed huskily, his voice dropping to a whisper as he turned to face her fully. His gaze locked onto hers with a depth that mirrored her own intensity. Their hike continued through the afternoon, the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath their feet punctuated by stolen glances and lingering touches that spoke volumes. They paused at a secluded clearing where a crystal-clear stream whispered over smooth stones, the perfect spot to rest and savor the natural beauty that surrounded them. Seated on a weathered log, Sarah and Liam watched as sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting shimmering patterns on the water's surface. Time seemed to slow to a tranquil pace, allowing them to bask in the simple joy of each other's company. "I never expected to find a deep connection here," Liam admitted softly, his voice low and filled with a raw honesty that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. His eyes held a hunger she couldn't ignore, a desire that mirrored her own. Sarah's cheeks flushed with a mixture of surprise and anticipation. "Nor did I," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze locked with Liam's, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached out to gently touch his hand, her touch lingering with a longing that spoke of unspoken desires. As the sun began its descent towards the horizon, Liam closed the distance between them, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that ignited a firestorm of emotions between them. It was a kiss filled with longing and unspoken words, a silent promise of what could be if they dared to surrender to the undeniable pull that had drawn them together. Their embrace deepened, fueled by a primal need that transcended words. The forest around them faded into insignificance as they lost themselves in each other, their bodies pressed close, their hearts beating in sync with the rhythm of their shared passion. When they finally pulled apart, breathless and trembling, Sarah and Liam gazed at each other with a mixture of awe and desire. The world around them seemed to shimmer with newfound possibilities, the boundaries between friendship and something more blurred by the intensity of their connection. "Will you go to dinner with me?" Liam said. "I want to take you out." "Okay," she said with a blush. Sarah couldn't remember the last time a guy had taken her out for dinner. Guys didn't typically notice her, certainly not famous musicians. "I'd love to," she said, and she resisted the urge to squeal in delight. Chapter 4. Liam chose a charming, intimate restaurant nestled in the heart of the town, known for its rustic ambiance and exquisite cuisine. As they walked hand in hand towards the entrance, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was their first proper date, and she was eager to enjoy a romantic evening with Liam. The restaurant's warm, golden glow welcomed them as they stepped inside. The host, recognizing Liam, led them to a secluded corner table with a view of the twinkling lights outside. Sarah admired the decor, a blend of vintage charm and modern elegance, as she settled into her seat. "This place is beautiful," Sarah remarked, smiling at Liam. "I thought you'd like it," Liam replied, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "I wanted tonight to be special." They perused the menu, exchanging playful banter and stealing glances at each other. The waiter soon arrived to take their orders and suggested a few dishes he thought they might enjoy. As their conversation flowed effortlessly, Sarah felt herself relaxing. They talked about their dreams, their future, and the small everyday moments that had brought them joy. For a while, it felt as though they were the only two people in the world. But as the evening progressed, Sarah began to notice subtle changes in the atmosphere around them. She saw heads turning in their direction, and out of the corner of her eye, she caught glimpses of people whispering and pointing. At first, she tried to ignore it, focusing on Liam's animated stories and the delicious food before them. Yet, the feeling of being watched grew increasingly difficult to shake. "Liam, do you notice anything unusual?" Sarah finally asked, her voice tinged with unease. Liam glanced around, his expression shifting from carefree to concerned, as he took in the curious stares and hushed murmurs. "Yeah, I see it. It's probably because of my recent shows and the media coverage." Sarah bit her lip, her initial excitement dampened by the sudden attention. I guess I didn't realize what it would be like to be seen in public with you. Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. I'm sorry, Sarah. We can leave if you're uncomfortable. Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the genuine concern there. No, it's okay. I don't want to ruin our night. I just need to get used to it, I suppose. They resumed their meal, but the once cozy atmosphere now felt different. Sarah tried to focus on Liam's words, but the whispers and glances around them were hard to ignore. At one point, a young couple approached their table, the woman holding out a napkin and a pen. Excuse me, Liam, she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Could we get an autograph? We're huge fans. Liam smiled politely, taking the pen and signing the napkin. Of course. Thanks for your support. As the couple walked away, Sarah felt uncomfortable. Liam squeezed her hand, his eyes full of empathy. I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. It's just… I guess I didn't realize what it would be like, Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect this much attention. I understand, Liam said softly. Let me know if you want to leave. Sarah shook her head no. They made a concerted effort to enjoy the rest of their meal, but the earlier ease was gone. After dinner, Liam suggested they take a walk by the lake to be alone. The cool night air and the gentle sound of the water helped to calm Sarah's nerves. They walked in silence for a while, hand in hand, until Sarah finally spoke up. All of this attention is going to take some getting used to. Liam pulled her into a hug, holding her close. I'm here for you, every step of the way. Eventually people will get bored and their attention will wane. They stood by the lake, wrapped in each other's arms, finding solace in their shared company. As they made their way back to Sarah's house, the quiet of the night offered a stark contrast to the bustling restaurant. She knew that there would be difficult moments, but she was willing to navigate them for the sake of their relationship. When they reached her doorstep, Liam pulled her into another embrace. Thank you for tonight, he whispered. I know it wasn't perfect, but I'm glad we had this time together. Me too, Sarah replied. With a final, lingering kiss, they said goodnight. As Sarah watched Liam walk away, she felt a mixture of apprehension and hope. Chapter 5. The aftermath of their date lingered like a sweet ache in Sarah Kensington's heart as she navigated the day that followed. As she carefully arranged a display of new arrivals near the library's entrance, she sensed Liam's presence before she saw him. His footsteps echoed softly on the polished wooden floor, drawing closer with each measured stride until he stood beside her, his expression a blend of longing and uncertainty. Sarah, Liam began, his voice a gentle murmur that sent a flutter through her heart. About the other night. Sarah turned to face him, her breath catching at the raw vulnerability in his eyes. She braced herself for a breakup. She replied softly, her voice tinged with a mixture of hesitation and longing. I understand if you don't want to see me anymore. A flicker of confusion crossed Liam's features. What? Why wouldn't I want to see you anymore? His hand reaching out to lightly brush against hers. Sarah, you have been a light in the dark. I want this, whatever this is. He gently grabbed both her hands in his. But you're a famous musician and I'm just a librarian, she said, looking away. She tried to pull her hands out of his, but he held firm. Sarah, I have to leave at the end of the week to finish the tour. Say you'll wait for me, and I'll return to you. She hesitated, not looking him in the eyes. I don't know, she admitted. This is all happening really fast. She took a deep breath, sounding resigned. All I know is I've never felt this way before, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper as she finally met Liam's gaze with look of vulnerability. Liam nodded in understanding, his expression a mirror of Sarah's conflicted emotions. Your life here in Serenity Peak, he murmured thoughtfully, his thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of her hand. And my career. The tours, the unpredictability. Sarah sighed softly, her fingers curling around Liam's in a silent gesture of comfort. I don't want to lose what we have, she admitted quietly, her gaze searching his for a sign of reassurance. Liam's lips curved into a tender smile, his gaze softening with affection. Neither do I, he replied earnestly, his voice filled with a quiet certainty that eased the shadows of doubt in her heart. Then suddenly the moment was shattered when someone stepped into the aisle and took a photo of them. Sarah pulled away abruptly and walked away. When she turned back around, there were more people talking to him and asking him for photos. Sarah found herself grappling with unease. The once serene routine at the library now felt suffocated by whispers and curious glances. Was she enough for him? Was she worthy of a renowned musician? What would people say? What would they think? How would a relationship with him even work? She sighed and looked at her watch. All that would need to wait. It was time for a reading session for local children at the library. As she got ready, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The children giggled and eagerly gathered around her, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension that gripped Sarah's heart. Liam's recent performance at the town square had drawn a larger crowd than usual, and with it came the prying eyes of reporters and curious onlookers who sought glimpses of the woman who had captured Liam Hunter's attention. As Sarah read aloud from a beloved storybook, her voice trembled slightly under the weight of it all. Every word she spoke seemed to reverberate in the hushed silence of the library, magnified by the unspoken scrutiny that now shadowed her every move. After the reading session ended, Sarah retreated to her office, seeking refuge amidst the familiar shelves of books that had always offered her solace. The walls seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with their silent judgment and the echoes of whispered conversations she had overheard earlier in the day. "You're the talk of the town now, Sarah," one librarian had remarked with a knowing smile. "Everyone wants to know your story." Sarah sank into her chair, her head spinning with a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. She had always cherished her quiet life in Serenity Peak, finding fulfillment in the simple joys of books and community. But now, the attention that Liam's fame had brought threatened to unravel the delicate balance she had carefully cultivated over the years. When Liam appeared at her office, his presence was a bittersweet reminder of the challenges they now faced. His eyes searched hers with a mixture of concern and regret, sensing the turmoil that lay beneath Sarah's composed exterior. "Sarah," Liam began softly, his voice a gentle caress against the strained silence that enveloped them. "I'm sorry about that." Sarah shook her head, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her desk. "It's fine, Liam," she replied quietly. Liam stepped closer, his hand reaching out to gently cup Sarah's cheek. "I never wanted to complicate your life," he murmured earnestly, his eyes searching hers with a vulnerability that mirrored her own. "But I can't deny the feelings I have for you." Sarah closed her eyes, her heart aching with a longing she couldn't ignore. "Neither can I," she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know how this will even work." Liam's touch was tender, a silent reassurance of his unwavering support. "We'll figure it out together," he promised, his thumb brushing away a stray tear that trailed down Sarah's cheek. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this easier for you." Sarah's lips trembled with unspoken gratitude as she leaned into Liam's touch, finding comfort in the warmth of his embrace amidst the uncertainty that surrounded them. "I want to believe that," she confessed, her voice laced with a mixture of hope and fear. Liam silenced her with a gentle kiss, leaning over her desk, his lips conveying a depth of emotion that words could not express. Their intertwined fingers spoke of a silent promise, a promise to confront the challenges ahead with courage, to embrace the unexpected twists of fate, and to forge a future where their relationship could thrive amidst the tumultuous currents of fame. Sarah pulled back slightly, her eyes searching Liam's with a mix of emotions, a slight quiver in her voice. "I appreciate your support, Liam, but I worry about what this attention might mean for us. For me." Liam nodded, his expression serious yet filled with determination. "I understand, Sarah. This isn't what you signed up for, and I never wanted to bring complications into your life like this." She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and concern, her thoughts racing. "I love spending time with you, Liam. It's just everything else." He reached out, gently brushing her cheek. "We'll figure it out," he said softly. Chapter 6. Sarah tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. The library, her beloved refuge, became a place where she could momentarily escape the prying eyes and incessant murmurs. Yet, the sanctuary felt invaded. Reporters had started frequenting the library under the guise of checking out books, but their ulterior motives were clear. Questions about Liam and their relationship would slip into seemingly innocent conversations. As Sarah was shelving books, she overheard a conversation between two patrons near the mystery section. "Did you hear? Sarah Kensington is dating Liam Hunter. Can you imagine? A small-town librarian and a famous musician." One of them squealed excitedly. "I wonder how she's handling all the attention." "It must be exciting," the other replied, their tone tinged with curiosity and envy. Sarah's fingers tightened around the book she was holding. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and continued with her task. However, the weight of the whispers was growing harder to bear. That evening, after the library closed, Sarah decided to visit her favorite spot by the lake, seeking solace in its calming presence. As she approached, she found Liam already there, sitting on a weathered wooden bench, gazing at the tranquil water. "Liam?" Sarah called softly, and he turned to her, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Sarah, I didn't expect to see you here," he said, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "I needed a place to think," she replied, sitting beside him. "It's been busy at the library." Liam's smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. "I know. I've noticed the strain it's putting on you. The attention, the whispers. It's not fair to you." Sarah sighed, her gaze fixed on the rippling surface of the lake. "It's not your fault, Liam. I didn't realize how much being tied to you would change things." People's constant curiosity. Liam reached out, taking her hand in his. "I never wanted to bring this chaos into your life. I thought we could find a way to balance everything." Sarah turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "I wanted to believe that too, but it's hard to ignore the reality." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his eyes filled with determination. "I care about you, Sarah, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect what we have, even if it means making some difficult decisions." Sarah's heart ached at his words, the sincerity in his voice touching her deeply. "What kind of decisions?" she asked softly, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Liam took a deep breath, his expression resolute. "I've been thinking about taking a break from touring, at least for a while. It's not just about the music anymore. I want to be here for you." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "Liam, you can't just put your career on hold because of me. Your music is important to you. It's who you are. But you're important to me too," he replied earnestly. "And if being together means making some sacrifices, then I'm willing to do that. I can focus on writing, on smaller performances, anything that keeps me close to you." Sarah's heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and love. Yet, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. She didn't want to be the reason Liam compromised his dreams. "I don't want you to resent me for this later," she whispered. Liam shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "I could never resent you, Sarah. Being with you has brought a new kind of inspiration into my life. I've been writing new songs. I feel alive again. You make me feel alive again." I want to be here with you." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. She straddled his lap, her legs wrapping around him as she leaned in to kiss him. It was a fierce kiss, fueled by deep longing. Her hands tangled in the back of his hair, pulling him closer as if she could fuse their souls together through the intensity of their embrace. He responded with equal fervor, his hands gripping her hips and pulling her closer with a guttural groan that sent shivers down her spine. The raw desire and passion between them were palpable, an electric current that seemed to light up the room around them. When she finally broke their kiss, their breaths mingled. She kept her face just inches from his, their foreheads nearly touching. His eyes, dark with desire, stared into hers, and he tilted his face up slightly to look into her eyes. "Is this real? Am I really kissing Liam Hunter?" she asked. "You are indeed," he answered breathlessly. "But when we are together, I am just Liam and you are just Sarah. Two souls that found each other in this big, beautiful world." He leaned in to kiss her again, but she pulled back ever so slightly. "Come home with me," she suddenly blurted out. "I mean, I can make us a meal or something if you are hungry." His smile brightened. "Sarah, I thought you'd never ask," he said, laughing. "Oh, forget it," she said, lifting one leg to hop off his lap. He gripped her tightly back to him. "Sarah Kensington, there is nothing I want more on earth than to go home with you." The way he said it with fierce conviction had her heart melting. "Okay," she said somewhat breathlessly. Then, before she could say anything else, he kissed her again. Chapter 7. The days following brought a tentative peace to Sarah and Liam's lives. The decision to prioritize their relationship over the demands of fame was not easy, but it was necessary. However, despite their resolve, the external pressures persisted, casting long shadows over their budding romance. One morning, as Sarah prepared to open the library, she received a call from her sister, Emily. Emily's voice, usually a source of comfort, now carried an edge of concern. "Sarah, I've been reading the news. They're talking about you and Liam," Emily said, her tone worried. Sarah sighed, her grip tightening on the phone. "I know. It's been hard to escape it." "You need to be careful, Sarah. The media can be relentless. And people will talk. They're already talking." "I know," Sarah repeated, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I think I love him. What am I supposed to do?" Emily paused, her voice softening. "I'm happy for you. I just don't want you to get hurt." After the call ended, Sarah leaned against the counter, her thoughts heavy. She knew Emily was right. The media frenzy was only a part of the challenge. The whispers and judgments from the people of Serenity Peak added another layer of complexity. Later that afternoon, Liam came to the library, his presence a welcome distraction from Sarah's worries. They decided to take a walk through the town, hoping that their visibility together would dispel some of the rumors. As they strolled hand in hand, they could feel the eyes of the townspeople on them. Some smiled warmly, offering their support, while others whispered behind their hands, their curiosity and envy palpable. "Do you think this will ever get easier?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves. Liam squeezed her hand gently. "I hope so." They continued their walk, eventually reaching a small coffee shop where they could sit and talk. As they sipped their coffee, a young woman approached their table hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Liam Hunter?" she asked, her eyes wide with admiration. Liam smiled politely. "Yes, I am. I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of your music. It's helped me through some tough times." "Thank you. Thank you for saying that," Liam replied warmly. "It means a lot to hear." The woman glanced at Sarah, her expression curious. "And you must be Sarah. It's nice to meet you." Sarah smiled, trying to hide her discomfort. Nice to meet you too. As the woman walked away, Sarah couldn't help but feel a pang of insecurity. She was starting to feel like a secondary character in their shared story. Do you ever wish you weren't famous? Sarah asked. Liam took her hand, his touch reassuring. Sometimes, yes, but I don't regret any of it, especially not meeting you. Fame is part of my life, but it doesn't define who I am. Sarah nodded, her heart aching with a mix of love and doubt. I just want to be enough for you. I don't want to hold you back. You could never hold me back, Liam said firmly. Being with you makes everything worthwhile, and if we have to face some challenges, we'll do it together. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden flurry of activity outside the coffee shop. A group of reporters had gathered, their cameras flashing as they spotted Liam and Sarah through the window. Liam stood up, his expression protective. Let's go. We don't need this right now. Sarah nodded, and they quickly made their way out, trying to avoid the reporters' intrusive questions. The walk back to Sarah's house was tense, the weight of the media's presence pressing down on them. Inside the safety of her home, Sarah finally let her guard down. Liam reached out, taking her hand in his. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we're dealing with. It's not fair to you. I've been talking to my manager, and I've decided to cancel the rest of my tour. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. Liam, you can't just cancel your tour because of me. It's not just because of you, he replied earnestly. It's because of us. I want to focus on our relationship, on making this work. The tour can wait. Sarah's heart swelled with love for Liam, but also with guilt. I don't want you to give up your dreams for me, Liam. I can't be the reason you put your career on hold. Liam shook his head, his expression resolute. You're not asking me to give up anything. This is my decision. I love you, Sarah, and I want to be here for you. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she leaned into Liam's embrace. I love you too, but what if this doesn't work out? What if we're making a mistake and you ruin your career for me? Liam held her tightly, his voice steady. We won't know unless we try, and I'm willing to take that risk. The following day was a whirlwind of emotions. Liam's decision to cancel his tour made headlines, and the media frenzy only intensified. Sarah felt suffocated by the constant attention and the pressure of living up to the public's expectations of their relationship. While Sarah was at the library, a reporter approached her desk, his camera flashing. Miss Kensington, how do you feel about Liam Hunter canceling his tour for you? Sarah's patience snapped. This is a library, not a tabloid. Please respect my privacy and leave. The reporter persisted, his questions growing more intrusive. Do you feel guilty about holding Liam back from his career? Anger and frustration boiled within Sarah. Enough. This is my place of work. You have no right to be here. As the reporter left, Sarah's hands trembled with the effort to contain her emotions. She felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, and she couldn't help but wonder if their love was worth the turmoil it brought. That evening, Sarah and Liam sat in her living room, the tension between them palpable. Today was awful, Sarah admitted, her voice breaking. A reporter came to the library, asking intrusive questions. I can't do this anymore. Liam's heart ached at the sight of Sarah's distress. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. I wish I could protect you from all of this. But you can't, Sarah said. This is our reality now, and I don't know if I can handle it. Liam reached out, his fingers brushing away her tears. We can figure this out. Sarah shook her head, her voice filled with despair. I don't know. Liam's grip on her tightened, his voice desperate. Don't say that. We can make this work. I need some space, Liam, she said quietly. I need time to think. Liam's heart sank, but he knew he couldn't force her to stay. I understand. Take the time you need. In the solitude of the night, Liam composed a song, pouring his heartache and love into every note. It was a melody of longing, of hope, and of the fragile thread that still connected him to Sarah. As he played the final chords, he whispered a silent prayer that their love would find a way to endure, even in the face of the storm that threatened to tear them apart. Chapter 8. Sarah woke up the next morning, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She needed space, but the thought of being away from Liam brought a sense of emptiness she couldn't ignore. She decided to visit her sister Emily, seeking solace and advice. Emily lived in a cozy house on the outskirts of Serenity Peak, away from the prying eyes of the town. When Sarah arrived, Emily welcomed her with a warm hug, sensing her sister's distress. "Sarah, what's going on?" Emily asked gently, leading her to the kitchen table. Sarah sat down, her shoulders slumping. "It's Liam. I love him, but the pressure and the attention, it's all too much. I needed to get away, to think." Emily poured them both a cup of coffee and sat across from Sarah. "I can only imagine how hard this must be for you. But what if you and Liam have something special? Don't let the outside world destroy that." "I don't want to, but I don't know if I can handle being in the spotlight all the time," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. Emily reached across the table, taking her hand. "Have you talked to Liam about how you're feeling?" "We've talked, but it's still so hard. He's willing to make sacrifices for me, but I feel guilty about it. I don't want to be the reason he gives up his career." "Relationships are about compromise, Sarah. If Liam is willing to make changes, it's because he loves you. But you need to find a balance that works for both of you," Emily advised. Sarah nodded, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "I just need some time to figure things out." Meanwhile, Liam was struggling with his own emotions. He missed Sarah's presence more than he could express. He poured his heart into his music, hoping to find some clarity through his songs. One evening, as he played a haunting melody on his guitar, he received a call from his manager, Mark. "Liam, we need to talk," Mark said, his tone serious. "What's up, Mark?" Liam asked, trying to mask the turmoil he was feeling. "I've been getting calls from several venues. They want to know if you'll reconsider canceling the tour. There's a lot of money and reputation at stake here," Mark explained. Liam sighed, his fingers pausing on the strings. "I can't, Mark. Not right now." "I understand, but you need to think about your career," Mark said. Liam knew Mark was right, but the thought of losing Sarah was unbearable. "I'll think about it, Mark. Thanks." Liam poured his soul into his music, creating some of his most heartfelt work. The next afternoon, while Sarah was walking through Serenity Peak, she ran into an old friend, Maggie. They decided to grab lunch together, hoping to catch up and distract Sarah from her troubles. "So, how are things with you and Liam?" Maggie asked, curiosity evident in her eyes. Sarah hesitated, not wanting to reveal too much. "It's complicated. We're trying to figure things out." Maggie nodded sympathetically. "I can only imagine how hard it must be. But from what I see, you two have a strong connection. Don't let the attention ruin that." Sarah appreciated Maggie's words, but still felt the weight of her doubts. As they finished their lunch, Sarah realized that she needed to talk to Liam to face their problems head-on instead of avoiding them. That evening, she returned home and found Liam sitting on the porch, his guitar resting beside him. The sight of him brought a rush of emotions, and she knew it was time for an honest conversation. "Liam, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Liam looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. "I've missed you, Sarah." "I've missed you too," she admitted, sitting beside him. "But we can't keep going like this." Liam nodded, his heart aching at the thought. "I agree. I don't want to lose you, but I don't want you to feel unhappy either." The sun was setting, turning the sky pink and orange over Serenity Peak. He had been working on a new song, pouring his heart into the lyrics, but his mind kept drifting back to his manager's words and the looming decision about his tour. Sarah stepped onto the porch, her presence bringing a sense of calm to Liam's turmoil. She sat beside him, listening to the soothing melody he played. "Liam, I can see you're struggling with this decision," Sarah said softly. "What's on your mind?" Liam stopped playing and looked at her, his eyes reflecting the inner conflict he felt. "Sarah, you mean more than anything. But I can't ignore the fact that my career is a huge part of who I am. The tour, it's important to me." Sarah nodded, her heart heavy but understanding. "I know, Liam. And I don't want to be the reason you give up something you love." Liam reached out, taking her hand in his. "But I don't want to lose you either." Sarah squeezed his hand gently. "You won't lose me, Liam. Maybe you should continue the tour." Liam's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you sure? I don't want to put you through more stress." Sarah took a deep breath, summoning her inner strength. "Honestly, I feel like you canceling the tour has increased the media frenzy." Liam's heart swelled with love and admiration for Sarah. "I don't deserve you, Sarah. You're amazing." "We deserve each other," Sarah said with a smile. "Now, let's figure out how we can manage this." Over the next few days, Sarah and Liam worked together to come up with a plan. Liam decided to resume his tour, but with some adjustments to his schedule, ensuring he could spend more time in Serenity Peak. They agreed to set aside regular time for each other, no matter the distance. When Liam announced his decision to continue the tour, the media buzzed with excitement. The headlines were filled with speculation about his relationship with Sarah, but this time, they faced the attention with a united front. The night before Liam was set to leave, they shared a quiet dinner at Sarah's house. The atmosphere was bittersweet, filled with love and a touch of sadness. "I wish you didn't have to go," Sarah admitted, her voice tinged with longing. "I'll be back before you know it," Liam promised, his hand gently caressing her cheek. "And we'll talk every day. I promise." They spent the night wrapped in each other's arms, cherishing every moment before the inevitable separation. As dawn broke, Liam packed his bags and they drove to the edge of town where his tour bus waited. "I'll miss you," Sarah whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'll miss you too," Liam replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. "But this isn't goodbye. It's just a temporary parting." With a final kiss, Liam boarded the bus, waving to Sarah as it pulled away. Sarah watched until the bus disappeared from view, her heart aching, but filled with determination. Chapter 9. Weeks turned into months. Despite the physical distance, their relationship deepened through nightly video calls, texts, and emails. Sarah found strength in her love for Liam and her commitment to their relationship, while Liam drew inspiration from their bond, fueling his performances with raw emotion. The media had moved on, and Sarah felt peace again at the library. One evening, as Sarah was closing up when she received a call from Liam. "Hey, beautiful." Liam's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Hey, rockstar," Sarah replied with a smile, the sound of his voice instantly lifting her spirits. "I've got some news," Liam said, excitement evident in his tone. "I've been invited to perform at a major music festival next month." "It's a big deal, Sarah, but I want you to be there with me." Sarah's heart fluttered with excitement and apprehension. "That sounds amazing, Liam. I'd love to be there. We've been apart for so long, and I want to share this moment with you." After discussing the logistics, Sarah spoke with her boss, who agreed to give her time off. Sarah's anticipation grew as the festival approached, and she poured her energy into planning for the trip. Sarah traveled to the city where Liam was performing. The moment they saw each other, they rushed into each other's arms, the months of separation melting away in an instant. "I've missed you so much," Liam murmured, holding her tightly. I've missed you too, Sarah replied, tears of joy trailing down her face. The festival grounds were buzzing with energy, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and music. Liam led Sarah backstage, introducing her to his bandmates and the crew. Sarah felt a mix of pride and awe as she watched Liam in his element, preparing for the show. As the sun set, the festival grounds transformed into a sea of lights. Liam took Sarah's hand, leading her to a special spot near the stage. "Stay here," he whispered. "I have a surprise for you." Sarah watched with bated breath as Liam took the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Liam's presence commanded attention. He began his set with his usual energy, captivating the audience with his talent and charisma. Midway through the performance, Liam paused. "This next song is for someone very special to me," he announced, his voice echoing through the speakers. "Sarah, this one's for you." The music started, and Liam began to sing a new song he had written during their time apart. The lyrics spoke of love, longing, and the strength of their bond. As the song progressed, tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, touched by the depth of his emotions. After the song ended, Liam looked directly at Sarah. "I love you, Sarah," he said into the microphone, his voice filled with sincerity. "Thank you for being my rock." The crowd cheered, and Sarah felt overwhelmed with love and pride. After the show, they spent the night celebrating together, surrounded by the vibrant atmosphere of the festival. They danced, laughed, and reveled in each other's presence, making memories they would cherish forever. The next day, as they walked hand in hand through the city, Liam turned to Sarah, his expression serious. "I've been thinking a lot about us, Sarah. About our future." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to be apart from you anymore," Liam said, his eyes searching hers. "I want us to be together, wherever that might be." Sarah felt a surge of hope and love. "I want that too, Liam. I want a life with you." They spent the rest of the day discussing their dreams and plans, exploring ways to balance Liam's career with their desire for a stable, shared life. They talked about possible compromises, such as Liam focusing more on studio work and less on touring, and Sarah considering a flexible work arrangement at the library. As they prepared to leave the city and return to their respective routines, they shared a lingering goodbye, filled with promises and hope. "Remember, this isn't the end," Liam said, holding Sarah close. "It's just the beginning of a new chapter for us." Sarah nodded, her heart full. With a final kiss, they parted ways, each carrying the strength of their love and the promise of a future together. No matter the challenges ahead, they were ready to face them, united by the serendipitous summer that had brought them together. Thank you for listening to Serenity Song. If you enjoyed this story, we hope you will like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support.